Good Wednesday afternoon, my friends. I hope you're doing well, my brothers and sisters, and getting through the week well and abounding in life. If you're emotional, if you're hurting for things, if you just got a lot of stuff stored inside, I'm here to tell you I understand. And I'm going to talk more about that when we get to the word. But the first part of this little thing I do is the weather. And so let's jump into the weather, take a look at the map. And the theme you'll see this week will be consistency. Not a lot of change. Whatever you saw yesterday, today, you're probably going to see very similar tomorrow, Saturday, Friday, Sunday, the next few days, as the pattern kind of stabilizes and slows down. And even for many, it'll be less involved, less significant. It'll kind of moderate, will be another word we'll use. If you look at the map for today, you see the main feature, and the reason I say moderate is because there is a front, there is a low pressure, a little storm system over the plain states, right in the heart of the country. It's brought some thunderstorms. I saw there were a handful of severe thunderstorm warnings across the southern plains mainly, I think it was yesterday, and some rain, and that'll continue. See, it's there, draped across the country, but you won't see a lot of progress for it as time goes on. You also see that low pressure and that front draped across the far eastern U.S., kind of off the coast mainly, and that'll be the theme. It's going to kind of exit the picture, but a lot of talk. I saw the news overnight, the national news, and the people there were just so excited that it was sweater weather in New York, and it was just a big story because, hey, that cold front kind of creeped down through and brought them cooler weather, and so fall has kind of opened up there, and that'll be the theme for the next few days for the Northeast and even the mid-Atlantic states. But yeah, if you're hoping for it down here in the Southeast or Florida or even Texas or Oklahoma, I don't know that even out there you've had much sweater weather yet, and sorry to say it doesn't look like it's coming too soon, but hey, it's coming. It's October, so as sure as the sun rises, you know things are gonna go that way. You're almost done with the warm weather, so if this isn't your cup of tea or coffee, realize that you don't have to stress too much. Things are going to change. It's your favorite time of year, and we'll keep that coming. So as you go to tonight, not a lot of change. The front in the plains makes very little progress. The front over the mid-Atlantic moves, it kind of slides south, but stays kind of off the East Coast, and that's the pattern. You do see a little low in the Pacific Northwest. It's not going to move or do a whole lot either, and you'll see that as we go to Wednesday, same place. And across the plains, the fronts become stationary, stalled out, not doing a whole lot. Still some rain in places, but not this real active, vigorous system. And the front's going there off the East Coast. High pressure is kind of building in. As you look towards Friday, that whole system in the plains starts to fade out a little bit. It's not gone entirely. We'll see it again in a minute. And then off the East Coast, you see Hurricane Sam. Lots been talked about with that. It's this big, strong hurricane. It's been like a Category 3, 4 for many days now, but it's not affecting anybody. So anybody on land particularly, it looks like it'll miss Bermuda. It's going to miss the U.S., miss Canada pretty much. Not a big deal, and thanks be to God. And then as you go towards Saturday, you see Sam exiting the picture. You see the front across the plains gets a little reinvigoration, a little nudge of energy. They oscillate back and forth, and you get this little instability. You get this extra lift from a upper system, a trough, and you get the low to move a little further southeast, and that'll be the theme, but it's not going anywhere. That's not going to make a lot of progress. You see those highs both over the eastern U.S. and then also up over Canada, and that's going to be the dominant factor in the weather going forward and even beyond this. And hey, there's not a lot of there's not really any severe storm threats. There's not any hurricane threats to anybody. Life's going pretty good. Maybe not as cool as some like it, maybe not as hot as some like it, but we are blessed with the weather we've got right now. So I encourage you in that. Now then, talking about the Word, my heart was to bring you some messages from Luke 7. And what I want to say is your tears will make a place for you. So let's look at it. Verse 37. And behold, a woman in the city, which was a sinner, when she knew that Jesus sat at meat in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster box of ointment. And that's the setup for what we're talking about. One thing I want you to note is titles and how it describes people, and I feel like that's how they kind of describe themselves. That's what they know they are, who they define themselves as. It's who we define them as. It's a woman which was a sinner, and that's kind of a central highlight. Okay, maybe it doesn't use that as her title here. Later on, it just says a sinner, and she can, I mean, that's who she is. It's her. When you look at her life, that's who she's been. Now, what she does, what the whole message about in verse 38 is washing of feet. And she stood at his feet behind him weeping, and began to wash his feet with tears, and did wipe them with the hairs of her head, and kissed his feet, and anointed them with ointment. Washing the feet, to me, like, it's a strange concept. And I know it's in other places in the Bible. Jesus washes the feet of the apostles. And I know there's other places it talks about the feet. To me, it's kind of like almost discomforting, this concept. Like, nobody touches your feet. Like, why? And what's the point? It seems such a peculiar, strange concept. And I think a lot of that is we have to realize the situations, the life. People in those times, I have to stop and remind myself, people in those times, they didn't have much in the way of shoes. I don't think a lot of people even wore shoes necessarily. I don't know about that, but they didn't have big old tennis shoes and paved sidewalks. When they traveled from place to place, their feet were dirty. They didn't have showers or even necessarily much in the way of baths, especially the people of the Word, the people of God, again and again, especially the apostles. They were going here, there, and everywhere. The whole Gospels, just, it's a constant moving, a constant going, and that's rough on the feet. And so there's this idea that washing feet is a big part of the culture back then. And I think we lose that because we're not in that culture. We don't understand that. But I hope that'll help you remember that it's serving a purpose. It's a very special thing. The feet were very important back then. They're important now. You can't get anywhere without your feet, but your hands and your feet were what did all the work back then. Now it's our brains and our intellect and things we do. Now, even for washing feet, this one kind of, it's even more like, wow, what in the world? This verse, I'll be honest, it really unsettles me. I mean, she washes his feet with her tears, and she rubs it with her hair, and it's disgusting almost to me. And I think of when I first read this, without pushing myself to put it into context, I'm like, who is this crazy lady? What in the world is she doing? Why is she doing this? But it's serving a purpose. She's doing something. He has need. Jesus. She's doing something practical out of care and compassion. His feet are dirty, probably cracked and broken, and she doesn't have water, or she doesn't have the means necessarily to do a fancy thing, so she does it with what she has. She brings alabaster, ointment, which I think is a pretty fancy thing. It's kind of like she's giving so much of herself, but she's also giving. Why is she with the tears, she needs liquid to wash his feet off. Why is she using her hair? To dry it off. It's what she has. Why is she kissing his feet? We'll talk about that more in a minute, but it's out of care. It's things that are practical and useful. And so when I read this, it just disgusts me, but it really is doing use. It's really serving a purpose. Now, trying to understand what this woman did and why she did it, I need more than just a few kind of insights into what she's doing. And there's a lot more to this message. So, looking at 739, there's a contrast. Now, when the Pharisee, which had bidden him, saw it, he spoke within himself, saying, "This man, if he were a prophet," he's talking about Jesus, "would have known who and what manner of woman this is that touches him, for she is a sinner." Again, that's kind of the fundamental definition of her. That is her, what she is. It's not, and that's what I want to kind of put in contrast. He is, this verse emphasizes, he's a Pharisee. That's his title. And then this guy is too busy thinking about what others do wrong. And who he is. He's a Pharisee. He bidden him. He invited Jesus to his house. He's celebrating what great things he did, I can picture. He's celebrating who he is. He's a man of God, a Pharisee, a religious person. And he looks at her, and all he sees is her sin. All he does is condemn her as a human being for good, for who she is. And I don't want to downplay it. It's not she was just not a nice person or just had some bad qualities. She's a sinner. It emphasizes it when it introduces her. It emphasizes it here, and it emphasizes it going forward. And that's not to say, hey, no big deal, sin, do whatever you want. It's not the message, and it's never the message of God. It's not to say sin is good or sin is just fine, don't worry about it. The whole point of what she does here is because she's a sinner, she does these things. And we'll talk more about it, but he's more wrapped up in his identity and who he is and what he thinks decorum is and societal ways and attitudes. She's not. And verses 42 through 44, right after this, Jesus asks him, "Look, if I forgave a person a debt of $500 or and another person $5, who would be more passionate? Who would love me more? Who would rejoice over this more?" And it's clear. I mean, it's obvious. The more you're forgiven, the more it moves you. Guy said, you go to the store and he says, "Oh, keep the penny. I got the penny." Yeah, it's great. Happened to me yesterday at Publix, but it's not like, man, think about it for days and honor the guy. Whereas if somebody said, "Hey, you don't have to pay rent this month," or "Here's $1,000," or the more you're given, the more you rejoice over it. Usually it's natural to man. And it contrasts again. This guy's so busy thinking about all this other stuff that he doesn't do the things she does. He doesn't take care. He doesn't take care. He doesn't wash Jesus' feet or provide him water, which was, I think, a common practice. When you came before people, you had a basin to wash your feet in. I mean, keep the house clean, keep your feet well. I don't know exactly the reasons. I think it's mainly a sign of, it's kind of a care, it's a respect. It's here, I want you to be well. It's kind of like giving somebody a snack when they come from a long journey. Like, here, hey, I got you some food. What do you want? Or a drink? Well, here's the water to wash your feet. And he didn't do that. He doesn't show honor. She anoints him with oil. He didn't do anything like that. He's too busy thinking about what he is. They don't say what they talk about, but it clearly wasn't anything of much life otherwise. And he shows no affection. You didn't kiss me when I came. She's been kissing my feet the whole time. And that, I mean, again, from my culture, like, You don't just kiss people, but you think of like Eastern Europe, you give them a kiss on the cheek. It's the bigger picture. You're not showing affection. You're not showing gladness that I came. You're too busy thinking about who you are, what you're doing, honoring yourself, saying, look what I did. And you're too busy focusing on what somebody else is bad at. And there's a real message to us there that we shouldn't be doing that. He's too proud. He's too distracted. And so here's the core idea. Your tears, I said they make a place for you. They humble you. Now, as long as you act on them, and usually it's to do what people never would, they'll open doors. And I see that again and again. See, this woman, she's not a lunatic. She's not crazy. I mean, it's how it jumps out at first. Look at how the Lord responded to her. He was grateful and caring and affectionate and happy. What she did for him was taking care of him. It may sound kind of disgusting in our world, okay, but don't let that squash what the real idea is that she's doing. See, who is she? What's she doing? Why is she doing it? And that's what I think we have to go back to. She's a broken woman. Why is she here? Look, she's crying. She's crying so easily. And that's what's kind of odd to me. Like, you cry on somebody and wipe them with your tears. Again, that sounds kind of weird for today. But the whole idea, look back on it, she comes before Jesus. She comes before his man. And with other people, she can't help but cry. In fact, she wept. How often I'm sad, but I won't let other people see it. But when you really push you can't keep it in. Again, it humbles you. You'll look stupid. They're tears of, and why is she crying? That's the whole point. She's remorseful. She's sad. I mean, it doesn't say it. But she's a sinner. She came to see Jesus and she's crying and upset and trying to take care of him. Why would she be sad if it's not for who she was? And it'll say that, and it'll make that clear in a second. Tears of remorse, sadness will make a place for you as long as you act on them. And it brings back to me, why do we have emotions? I'll be honest, a lot recently, it's kind of like, to God, like, I don't want emotions. Why do you put emotions in us? I mean, the Bible's clear. The heart is deceitful above all things. And man, the tongue starts fires. And my own sorrow recently. I mean, it's just passion and sorrow over things that are not because of my dad, but other things in my life. And I think most people would just say, move on, forget it. It's too odd of a situation. It's too different. Most people wouldn't feel that way, but here I am still feeling that way. And it's like, God, maybe I shouldn't be feeling this way. I mean, emotions, they always let us down, right? The heart's deceitful. And I've seen emotions cause so many people to make impulsive choices, hurt people, do bad things. I mean, look, you murder because you have emotion. You're emotional. Your heart calls you to murder. I mean, look at the sins. Your heart calls you to murder. Your heart causes you to envy and to steal and to dishonor your parents and to use God's in vain. They're all out of your heart. So it's like, why do we have to have this thing? Like, God, take it away. Maybe I should be so much. I'm like, I just need to put the emotions aside, be this hard, cold person. I'm not a guy, especially if I'm just caught up in emotions. Real men, strong with their emotions. But again, so was this guy. So was this Pharisee. He was strong in his emotions. He didn't have any. So why do we have this emotion? And it's like, God, I don't know if this is good. I see something here. Why do we have emotions? Emotions lead to actions. They drive you to actions. They make you do things that you otherwise wouldn't do. The most important things. I'll back up. They drive you to love. They drive you to humble, to trust, to care, to put other people first. They inspire you to things. Your logical brain, you think it all out, that doesn't usually inspire you. You may come up with ideas. It's probably even then the emotions that kind of help inspire those ideas. But I'll tell you this, you won't do what she did. You won't make a fool of yourself in front of Jesus. You won't. It comes back to relationships, I think, a lot of it. I mean, I've always thought about, like, man, men especially, when it comes to the right woman, we make fools out of ourselves. We do the things we wouldn't do for anybody. We let down our guard, and hey, that's another point. I mean, it's with friendships too. It calls us to let down our guard. Our brain says never let down your guard, never open up, never care about people. But our heart, our emotions, our feelings push us to that point where we have to. And with Jesus, it calls us to repentance. It's our heart that leads us to repentance. If it's just logically, you have something that is labeled as a sin in the Bible, but you're not convicted, conviction's an emotion, it's a heart thing, then you're not repenting. You're not believing in God, because what is it to be forgiven of sins if it's not really a big deal to you? It drives us. And again, it drives us to love as much as anything. You look at 1 Corinthians 13, it's such a special chapter, verses 4 through 8. It describes what love is. And it's patient, and it looks out for the others, and it keeps no record of wrong, and it is not boastful, it is not arrogant. It delighteth in good. It doesn't delight in evil. There's emotion. Love is emotion. And emotion will lead you to do things your brain won't want to do. The most important things. And look, we got to take a look at this. Emotions can be bad. We don't want to write that off. But I want to make a point. She's not sitting here feeling sorry for herself. And there's the key. Satan loves to corrupt our emotions. After all, it says our emotions are our heart's deceitful. Well, who's the father of lies? It makes us think things it makes us think ugly things. It makes us do ugly things. Look, like I said, emotion leads to all those bad things. So how can we have good emotion? Why do we have emotion at all? Well, we gotta seek what's good versus what's not. And I think a big theme is selfishness. If our emotions are what we want, if we're self-pitying, if we're saying, man, I deserve better, and people push me to think that way. And love is having a passion for others. And if your passion is really for the best of other people, that's when you'll love them. So I'm not ashamed of how I feel, even as I think most people would beat me up for it, one way or another. I'm not ashamed. I know what's right. I know why it's there. I know that it's good emotions and not bad, and not all of them. Look, I know self-pity. I have times where I just pity myself so much. Flee from those thoughts, because that's not love. That's not God's emotions. That's corrupted emotions. Woe is me. Look at what this woman did. She probably had times where she felt, man, I've just had such a bad run. I've been treated so unfairly. But at this point, she don't care anymore. She's not sitting around in her house thinking how unfair it is. She's driven. She is at the bottom of her barrel. And I think maybe, I don't know. I mean, I know how it feels to not understand why we're in the same situation, while we're waiting. I understand it some. I know that the timing is so important. And I see that so vividly right now. But what I was saying. I think that's a lot of why we are in these situations sometimes. Maybe, I theorize, I wonder. Because we have to be brought to where we start with the emotions. It starts with self-pity, and it starts with just pain, and then it becomes self-pity, though. And somewhere along the way, God brings us past that self-pity to really look for the best in other people. He's giving us time for our heart to be ready, to be inspired, to be driven to do the things that we wouldn't do logically, but that are everything, that are relationships, that are caring, that are inspiration to do the most important things in your life, like career-wise and service-wise. When our emotions are ready, when we're hurting, when we're missing someone, when we're have a yearning for something, or something we just can't stand what's broken in the world or in something else, when it just hurts too much, that's when we're driven through it to do. We're finally at that point where it's just built up. It's like a thunderstorm. The energy builds up until the afternoon, and then it just, boom, thunderstorm. If all that energy just immediately released as soon as there was any, if the rain just started falling at 8 a.m. each day, it wouldn't be a big thunder. It wouldn't be in a big thunderstorm. It wouldn't put down a lot of rain. It wouldn't be very effective compared to what we see. Now, I know a lot of people don't like thunderstorms. I'm not trying to say yay thunderstorms, but their power is in that they build up, and that they realize great things, great potential. Potential builds up until they can no longer contain it. And I'm hopeful, I'm believing God's doing that in you and me. If you're filled with a heart of emotion and sadness and longing and missing and don't like your situation and it hurts, believe God's building you. I'm hoping, I have to believe God's building us up to do the things that we would never do. Because she has no false pretenses. Look, not all emotion is telling us that, calling us to repentance. Like I said, with a man and a woman, it's not the emotion in there is making me feel like I'm a horrible person, but it's still driving us to action. And so she was driven to action. She had no time to feel sorry for herself. It just drove her. She's going to this Jesus because she knows it doesn't say why she went. Like, she didn't get told he was there, who he was, or he was there. But something inside her, the Spirit, maybe somebody told her what Jesus was doing. I mean, his fame was pretty well known. Something drove her that she had to go there and had to do these things, and she didn't care how she looked. Because, I mean, she's going into the house of somebody who's a religious leader, like a Pharisee. Maybe not a leader, but he's a pastor. He knows he's the good guy. He's the guy, and he's all in decorum and doing things the right way. And she don't care. She is coming, and she is going to do that because that's her heart, and she can't not. It drives her to do what she needs to do. She knew she needed to be free. After all, it keeps emphasizing she is a sinner. She knows it's kind of the story of her. There's no other reason she would have come except because she was driven. Why is she crying? I mean, she could be crying tears of happiness too. I'm not saying she's not, but she's there because she needs to see this Jesus. And verse 50, the final verse of the chapter, finishes it. Jesus says to the woman, "Thy faith has saved thee. Go in peace." It was funny, I didn't realize until the very last when I was putting these thoughts down this morning. There's that peace again. And the whole point is, you're turbulent when you're going forth in emotions. You don't have a lot of emotion. A lot of emotion doesn't sync with peace. If you're upset or angry or even happy, I mean, life is so turbulent. Peace. All her emotions have been satisfied. They were there for a reason, for a temporary reason. And they brought her to where she's repented and she's forgiven. Your faith has made you whole, like we talked about faith on Wednesday. She did things, she didn't know why she was doing them, she just did them because she knew she had to. Many times we could say, yeah, I think I'm supposed to do this, but I don't know. So I'm praying, you and me, that and I know a lot of what I've been thinking about the last year is feeling like I gotta be ready to make a fool of myself when the time is right, when my purpose comes, when my love returns, when special people are in my life, friends, relationships, whatever. Special people, not ordinary people, when the right people are there. Because I've had times in my life where I haven't gone forth. When I liked someone, I think of a time years ago where I liked her so much, and I knew I needed to do something, but I didn't. Other times, the one time I asked a girl out in my life, it was such a train wreck, because it was, I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I didn't just let my heart run. And I guess all these years of sorrow and loneliness, I have to believe they're building me to a point where I'm ready to just not watch myself. Because I think a lot of times when I do things kind of like going on camera, I always hated the idea of going on camera. And I think at first when I go on camera, I'd be thinking the whole time, and I still do it some, I'd be thinking about what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, and I'd be critiquing myself, and I'd be in the middle of a sentence and I'd have a thought about that, it would draw me, or I'd end up saying another thing, and then I go, did I want to say it? I'd be thinking so much. The brain is just going crazy. And I think God is driving me towards a time, Lord, I'm believing, I'm praying, when it's not that way anymore. When I know that that's the point I'm supposed to be in. I know life is short. I know a lot of things have pushed me towards that recently. I had a friend who talked about his father when he died, and he wasn't, and he'd had things that had hurt him with like relationships and stuff in the past, and the next thing came, and he was just driven. He wasn't gonna dawdle on it and hold back and be unreal to people. He wasn't gonna putz about. He wasn't gonna drag his feet. I'm hoping we'll be people that don't drag our feet. There's so much in my heart. So many desires, so many people, so many feelings. I hope God is driving me towards something bigger. I believe He is. I have to believe He is. I know God has a purpose in the things He does. I know so much in my life it hasn't seemed like it. It's like right when things finally start, they're taken away, and it's just like I give up. I can't. But I'm done. I've thought that way so much in my life. I've mourned myself. But I've seen in the end where God, even in those self-mourning times, God was preparing the next thing. God wasn't done. There was another day. As impossible as it seems, God had more. And it was more special and more powerful than any of the other stuff. So don't give up on where you're at. The emotions, they take a while to work through. Look, and it's so easy to get hard-hearted. My life is emotion. I'm 40 or 39. And so much of my story of what I've done, of what I haven't done, of so much of my story by myself is emotions. It's yearning, it's heartache, it's pain. And it's tough being back here again, honestly, by myself. But I'm believing this time that it's not over. It's not done. God has proven He comes through. He is the provider, always. So, my friends, I encourage you to be doers and not just speakers. To live out your faith, your belief. To fight what's wrong in you, to fight the sin, and to be more. God will help you. Ask Him for help. He will help you, and it is important. It's what drove this woman to Jesus. It's what's got to drive us to Jesus. If we don't think we're sinners, we lie. We're wrong. She knew who she was. Know who you are. Fight what's wrong in you. But don't give up on the good things. Don't give up on what you know God did that was good and right. And look, I've had times where I've had to realize things I thought were good weren't. But as your heart, I know now a little more. And look, so much of what the problem was I gave up on things that really were good. Because I said, well, I don't feel it anymore. Clearly, it must not be good. Yeah, sometimes you are supposed to give up. But if you're just jumping to conclusions and saying, I give up right now, I've done that. That doesn't bring life. So seek God in your emotions to help you separate what's good from what's bad. Don't give up on your emotions. Don't quit feeling. I know it hurts. And that's, look, I say all these other things about what emotions do. More than anything, they hurt. They're painful. And just for so long, look, I know the feelings. God's not done with us. We have to have that faith like the Israelites as they walked to the Red Sea. I don't see how, but I know you can do all things. I know what my heart is for. I know what's good. Hope you have a good week. Love abundantly. Trust God. Pray and hope in Him, and He will lead you. And I'll see you Friday. Hope you're doing well. God bless.